Assuming that people have started the business and proven that they can actually sell something, and then they then do decide that they need to set up an entity, what are the choices that they have in setting up an entity?
Okay, so it's funny because we meet a lot of companies who come to China, and they go through very different stages of thinking how to operate in China. Uh, and the first thing that we see normally that there's enormous amount of companies that they're actually operating illegally, and they don't even know that they're operating illegally. And it starts with somebody coming to China, going to exhibition, meeting a really good agent or a nice salesperson, and this person says, you know what, I can start sell your product into China. I'll work from home. It will be cheap. You just send me some money from time to time, put him in WeWork, and then everybody's happy. The Australian company thinks, oh, we have an agent in China. The local guy thinks he's working for international international company, and everybody's happy. Later on, they realize that they're actually operating illegally. And WeWork is full of illegal people, whether it's a foreigner working without a working visa, and whether it's a local person working without legal employment. And this is bad for everyone. If you're a foreigner working without a visa, has become really dangerous. And the Chinese government is really cracking down on people without a visa. They do inspections. They came to our office and did some random inspection, and they found a visa that was not perfectly in place, and we got fined, and the person got fined. So they take it seriously. They come to these co-working spaces and they check the people and they check the visas. The other thing is that if you employ a local employee, and he knows that you're employing him illegally, and many times you do this because you want to save the social benefits and the taxes, and you just want to save money. But from the local employee point of view, after a while he realized, wait a minute, if the overseas company is willing to cheat the Chinese government and save these taxes, why do I have to be so loyal? Why do I have to be so compliant? And many times these companies are surprised that this local employee took advantage of them, either spending too much money or getting some money back from the distributors or suppliers. And they're surprised, how could he be so unfaithful? And many times we say, look, you showed him how to deceive the Chinese tax authorities. So he thought, okay, it's okay to deceive you as well. So there's nothing wrong with it. This is what, so you start your business in China illegally, and this is a bad start because your employees have this atmosphere of let's try to bend the rules. If they bend the rules, you. So working illegally is never a good advice. Then there's an option of a rep office. Rep office used to be a very common and an easy way to set up. The idea for the rep office is that you actually push your product into the market, do marketing activity, business development, and get your product familiar with the market. It had this limitation that you couldn't actually trade, you couldn't sell, you couldn't buy, and you couldn't employ your employees directly, and you had to use an HR agency for that. Over the years, rep office became a tool for many foreigners to actually get their visa sorted out. So there were tens of thousands of rep offices that were set up for one person only, just for him to have an employment visa. And the Chinese government are not stupid. They realized this, and they made it really harder and harder and more expensive to set up a rep office. And the cost of a rep office became higher because rep offices are taxed based on expenses. And many times the tax office has their own assumption of what the expenses should be. So the tax liability on the rep office got higher and higher. And now it's actually too expensive to run a rep office because you pay on every dollar that you bring into China, you could pay 20 to 25% tax on that money that you spend, and you don't see any money coming in. So there's and it's a hassle, and you still need to have a legal representative who is liable, and you need to file reports to the tax bureau every month, every quarter. You need to renew the license every year, and that becomes a major hassle. So rep office has become less and less popular. Then you have the WOFI, the joint venture. Joint venture was very popular many years ago. When I was actually in Beijing, joint venture was the only way to set up a proper company in China. You had to have a partner, Chinese partner, in many industries to get you into the market. And back then already, most of these joint ventures failed. And it was very common knowledge back then that joint venture did not work. And people used to describe it: one bed, two dreams. Each partner thought of a different agenda. The foreigner thought what he would gain from the business, and the local partner thought something different, how to gain from the business. And many of these agendas clashed over the years, and very few joint ventures, if any, succeeded. So for many years, it was almost a word that you wouldn't use, a joint venture. But actually, in the past few years, joint venture came back again. And in a way, they were structured better. I guess people learned from some of the mistakes. And the other reason was that the joint venture partner, this time, as opposed to in the 90s, the joint venture partner came with money. Back then, the foreigner came with the technology and the money. This time, the foreigner came with the technology, and the Chinese partner actually brought the money to invest in the business. And the foreigner says, well, it's his money, he's risking the money. The problem is that since the Chinese partner is risking the money and investing the majority of the money, still he is the stronger partner. No matter how many percent you have over the business, even 90%, if the Chinese partner has 1%, he knows the business, he controls all the channels, he controls employees, he controls where would the money go, and of course he will control if there'll be any profits and where these profits will go. Another obstacle is that even if the joint venture is succeeding and there's profits, it's very hard to take profits out of China these days. So even the successful joint ventures that we see, the foreign partners very rarely see any profits coming out his way, out of the country. And the joint venture local partner always have an excuse to say, well, you see the regulations, it's very tight, it's very hard to take money out of China, so let's leave the profits in China. So even the good joint ventures are good for the joint venture, but not for the foreign partner. So joint venture, I would not recommend unless you don't have any choice. And there are some industries, still you don't have any choice, that you need to have a joint venture partner in order to set up a business in this particular industry. The next one is a WOFI. A WOFI is a wholly foreign-owned entity. I will not get into all the legality or technicality of a WOFI, but basically this is the most common way for a foreign company to establish and set up and manage here in China. It gives you almost the full ability of managing a business, of buying and selling and getting profit out of China, and importing and exporting and manufacturing. There's all sorts and types of WOFIs. Each WOFI needs to have a specific lines for specific products and for specific activity. So you need to know exactly what you're doing and what you need, and to make sure that the WOFI is set up properly. And then again, it's important to understand when do you need this WOFI, where do you need this WOFI, and who will manage it, which is also very important. Another option was very popular in the past few years is a WOFI in a free trade zone. There was a huge campaign from the free trade zone going around the world, actually, a delegation from the free trade zone trying to attract businesses to come to the free trade zones. We tried it. We set up a company in the free trade zone. It was easier to set up. I must say it was easier, but it was a big challenge to manage it, because a free trade zone, at least in Shanghai, is 2 hours away. And every time that you need to file a report or go to the tax office or issue an invoice, it's like a day trip, 2 hours there, spending half a day in the tax office and 2 hours back. So you spend 1 or 2 or 3 days per month just traveling to the tax bureau and back. So having a company in the free trade zone didn't give us any benefits. All the benefits that they mentioned, we didn't see any of this. It may come maybe in a few years down the road. So all the benefits are not really existing, but the hassle of managing a company in the free trade zone is a major hassle. Now, the other option that we recommend, and as I said already, that if you can delay the setup of a company or setup of a joint venture or rep off, ask me, so how can I conduct my business? How can I do it? And our answer is incubation solutions. And incubation solutions, there are different type of incubation solutions. There are companies like us that are helping companies to import products, to host and store and manage products, and then sell products to end users and invoice on behalf of overseas companies. We can invoice the clients, and the most important, collect funds from the clients, and even most important, getting the money out of China, which is the biggest challenge. So you can actually conduct the entire business on somebody else's platform, on somebody else's licenses. Of course, this company and this agency needs to bear some risk and liability because for example, when companies want to operate through us and they want us to hire people, so we find the people, we recruit them, and we employ them in our office. So when they're in the office, we can get to know them, we kind of supervise them, but then if things go bad and they leave on bad terms, they sue us, they sue the incubator. And they don't sue the overseas company, which gives the overseas company some sort of protection. And obviously for us to deal in China with Chinese employees, it's easier because we know the law, we know the rules, we know how to manage HR. So we hardly in the 20 years that PTL has been operating, I'm not saying that we didn't have any cases, but we knew how to solve these cases. Even when we had to go to arbitration or even to court, in most cases, we managed the conflict very well and we protected our clients. So the important thing is to find incubations like us, and we also have an incubator for factories. So if you need to set up a factory, instead of pouring enormous amount of money and setting up your own factory, you can use somebody else's factory until you realize that it's really worthwhile manufacturing in China, that you can really get some benefits or get it cheaper. So again, even with manufacturing, you don't have to rush into manufacturing and setting up a full-scale factory. You can do it on a very small scale and then decide if you want to do it by yourself.